A man and a young boy, Kotaro, are running through a forest, escaping from a burning temple. Once they reach a safe distance, the man tells Kotaro he must go on alone because he is returning to the temple to help anyone still there. He gives Kotaro a gem, telling him to sell it if he ever needs money, and gives him directions to a place where someone will be waiting for him. Meanwhile, a group of Chinese soldiers is riding through the rain in the mountains, unaware that someone is watching them from above. The watcher, a man, rushes off to inform his boss, a bandit leader, that he has found a great target. Later, as the Chinese convoy crosses a bridge, their leader is shot in the neck, revealing the bandits' ambush. The bandits attack from a small mountain, blocking the path and firing arrows at the soldiers. One of the Chinese men, Luo Lang, charges forward using fallen bodies as a shield. He climbs the mountain and quickly takes down the men at the top before jumping down and effortlessly cutting through the bandits. Soon, only the bandit leader is left. Luo Lang, showing off, fights him barehanded, dodging his strikes before catching his sword mid-swing and throwing it back, killing him instantly. Meanwhile, near the coast, Kotaro and his dog, Tobimaru, successfully steal food and water from a house. They have clearly done this before. They return to an abandoned temple where they have been staying. Kotaro goes to the basement for cooking supplies, but hears a loud stomach growl. He peeks out and sees a man with a sword sitting calmly. The man assures him there's no danger. Kotaro angrily tells him to leave, claiming the temple as his home. Amused, the man says Kotaro should get used to having a tenant now. Kotaro storms off to cook the fish he stole. Meanwhile, two men complain about escorting the Chinese on orders from Lord Akaike. They discuss a mysterious wooden altar being built nearby with no nails, only bark lashings, and wonder about the Chinese customs. Back at the temple, as Kotaro cooks, the man walks out, saying it smells good. Kotaro refuses to share, but the man, who goes by Nanashi, meaning nameless in Japanese, notes that Kotaro hasn't been there long since the smoke shows the wood isn't dry. Kotaro tells him to mind his business and gives Tobimaru a fish. Tobimaru, instead of eating it, brings it to Nanashi, who happily accepts it. Down by the coast, the Chinese soldiers question an old man about Kotaro. He looks up at the mountain, noticing smoke, and says he didn't think anyone lived up there. At the temple, Kotaro hears horses approaching and tries to escape, but is blocked by one of Akaike's men, who is suddenly hit by a rock flying through the wall, knocking him down. Another man walks toward the temple, but Nanashi blocks his path. The man draws his sword and tells Nanashi to move, but instead Nanashi uses his sheathed sword to launch a cooking pot at his head. Inside, another one of Akaike's men attacks Tobimaru, but is quickly taken down. Outside, a Chinese warrior throws two daggers at Nanashi, who deflects them. Nanashi, realizing he's more involved than he wanted, says he'd rather not fight, but the warrior pulls out a whip-like weapon and attacks him. Nanashi dodges the attacks, but his arm gets caught in the warrior's whip. The warrior throws two more daggers, but a boy jumps in and saves Nanashi, grabbing one dagger aimed at his face while getting cut by the other. The warrior, enjoying the fight, rushes in with his daggers but ends up getting his arm broken. He still looks like he's having fun. Gotta respect that. Nanashi uses the whip on the ground to tie him up before slamming his sword into his neck, snapping it completely. After the fight, Tobimaru looks sick. Nanashi says he was probably poisoned and tells Kotaro he needs to take him to a doctor. As Nanashi starts walking away, saying it's too dangerous to stay, Kotaro runs in front of him and offers the gem in exchange for his help in saving Tobimaru and taking them where they need to go. Nanashi looks at the gem and agrees. They spend the rest of the day traveling to a village. Nanashi takes Tobimaru to a doctor, who does his best but warns Nanashi that he has never treated a dog before. But don't worry, the dog turns out fine. Nanashi brings him outside and Kotaro rushes over. Nanashi explains that the wound isn't deep, but Tobimaru will be weak for a while because of the poison. Meanwhile, another group of Akaike's soldiers arrives at the abandoned temple, escorting a Chinese warrior. The warrior steps inside and the soldiers silently signal each other before surrounding him and drawing their swords. Back down on the coast, the old man from earlier watches the temple burn. Meanwhile, Nanashi and Kotaro find a place to stay on the outskirts of the village. Nanashi heads into town to buy a new saddle since the old one would attract too much attention. Luo Lang is also in the village, searching for Kotaro. He talks to his allies about how they only have 4 days to find the boy, or they'll be stuck there for another year. As he looks around, he spots Nanashi and becomes very interested in him after noticing he carries a katana. As they walk past each other, Luo Lang suddenly throws a dagger at Nanashi while he's crossing a bridge. When asked why, Luo Lang simply says he feels like having fun. He steps up to Nanashi pulls out his sword and charges in. Nanashi only dodges and blocks, never attacking. Luo Lang gets annoyed and asks why he doesn't draw his sword, saying it must be just for show. He stops fighting when his partner tells him that 2 of their men have been killed. Nanashi returns, but an argument starts between him and Kotaro. Kotaro doesn't trust him and believes he's looking for someone to sell him out to. Nanashi suggests that maybe they should go their separate ways if Kotaro feels that way. Kotaro points out that if Nanashi leaves now, all his efforts so far will have been for nothing. As they stare at each other, Tobimaru suddenly starts drinking water by himself. Nanashi gives Kotaro a sachet, explaining that the doctor said to give it to Tobimaru once he was able to drink on his own again. Then Nanashi leaves to get food. Elsewhere, Luo Lang inspects the bodies at the abandoned temple and finds something suspicious. When he returns to their base, he reports to his leader that one of the men was killed by a snapped neck, but the other body isn't actually one of their own. He suspects that a Keiki samurai faked a death and took one of their warriors hostage instead. Meanwhile, Nanashi returns with food and places it next to Kotaro. As he starts to leave, Kotaro admits he was wrong and that he only said those things because he was upset. Nanashi agrees, saying they were both just being hot-headed. The next morning, as Nanashi saddles his horse, Kotaro asks about the charm wrapped around his sword handle, noting that it's tied in a way that stops him from drawing it. Nanashi says it's a promise he made but refuses to explain further. Elsewhere, the Shogun and Lord Akaike enter an underground chamber where a Chinese warrior is being held. One of the men says that no matter what they do, they can't get any reaction out of him. Akaike takes a red-hot poker and presses it into the warrior's chest. To their shock, the only response they get is a smile. The Shogun tells everyone to let him handle things, saying he will figure out what the Chinese are planning and make a deal with the Ming Emperor. In town, the old man who let Kotaro and Nanashi stay in his spare room sees a notice offering a reward for finding a boy with a dog. Hoping to get the reward, he leads Akaike's soldiers to his home, but when he opens the door, he finds a note thanking him for his help, showing that Kotaro and Nanashi left earlier that day. Later that night, while camping, Nanashi notices they are being watched. He tells Kotaro to keep talking and asks where he is from. Kotaro says he lived in Ming until 2 years ago when his father died. He was about to be sold into slavery when a Japanese monk who trained in China saved him and took him to his temple. Suddenly, their watchers attack, but Nanashi quickly defeats them. When asked if they are Akaike's men, they claim they are just passing thieves. Nanashi lets them go but takes their money. Meanwhile, the Shogun finds the prisoner in withdrawal and examines a drug that makes Chinese warriors feel no pain in battle. He orders the prisoner to be put out of his misery. He later tells Akaike that the Chinese are looking for a rare ingredient in Japan to make an elixir of immortality. They believe that once every century, a chosen child's blood can create it. Unfortunately, that child is Kotaro. Akaike wants to capture Kotaro and use him as a bargaining chip with the Chinese emperor. Over the next few days, Kotaro and Nanashi become close friends. They reach the temple Kotaro was supposed to go to, and Kotaro gives Nanashi his payment, joking about its value. They are interrupted by a familiar man calling out to Kotaro. Kotaro hugs him, and as Nanashi leaves, Kotaro tells him that if he ever wants a real name, he should come back, and Kotaro will think of a great one. Inside, Kotaro realizes something is wrong when a Chinese warrior appears. He tries to escape but is knocked out. As Nanashi leaves, he sees 2 Chinese warriors riding away with Kotaro tied up. He chases after them, but they cut his horse, making him fall. Determined, he and Tobimaru track Kotaro down. Meanwhile, Kotaro is taken to the construction site where he will be sacrificed. Luo Lang asks if the man who tried to save him is his friend, but Kotaro says nothing. The Shogun gathers an army, pretending to rescue Lord Akaike, but actually plans to take power for himself. Exhausted, Nanashi finally finds where Kotaro is being held as the Shogun's soldiers break in, fighting the Chinese warriors. Nanashi finally arrives and sees Kotaro at the very top. Just as he makes his way in, scaffolding begins to collapse due to explosions thrown by the Chinese leader, falling on top of him and knocking him unconscious. While unconscious, he experiences a flashback revealing the reason he chose to lock his sword away for good. While serving a previous lord, he was ordered to execute 2 children, which completely changed his view on battle and led him to vow never to unsheath his sword again. When he regains consciousness, he makes his way up and calls out to Kotaro, but one of the Chinese warriors sees him and rushes toward him, killing the Shogun's men in the process. Seeing no other way to save Kotaro, Nanashi rips the charm off his sword, having found a new purpose in protecting Kotaro, and draws it for the first time in years. With one strike, he cuts straight through the Chinese warrior before running up and putting everything he has into throwing his sword at the man about to kill Kotaro, landing a clean hit on his neck. Meanwhile, Luo Lang is fighting with the shogun, and despite putting up a valiant effort, gains the upper hand by cutting behind his knee and slamming a knife into his shoulder. As they are about to continue their fight, the leader intervenes. Kotaro and Tobemaru begin making their way down the giant structure when Nanashi appears, saying it is time to leave. As they descend, a warrior attacks them, causing Nanashi to fall where another opponent is waiting. Both warriors attack him simultaneously, and he struggles to fight back. Seeing this, Kotaro throws down a sword to him, allowing him to dispatch one of the warriors. As he does so, blood streaks into his eyes, partially blinding him. He tackles the remaining opponent off the platform onto the level below. After they land, the Chinese warrior searches for his sword, which is in an unfortunate place for him. In his blind state, Nanashi slips on a piece of wood and nearly falls off the side, but Kotaro saves him. Luo Lang, observing the battle, acknowledges Nanashi's skill in defeating two of their men at once. The leader approaches, ready to shoot Nanashi, but Luo Lang swiftly cuts off both the rifle and the leader's arm in one strike. Expressing his satisfaction at coming to this country, he states that it has been a long time since he has fought a worthy opponent before killing his leader. Nanashi comments on this not being their first meeting, and Luo Lang offers him one of the pain-erasing drugs they use. Nanashi refuses, stating that he would rather fight with the pain because it makes him feel more alive, a sentiment Luo Lang respects. They then engage in an intense sword fight, widely regarded as one of the best in anime. Nanashi, exhausted, remains on the defensive, struggling to deflect Luo Lang's rapid strikes and receiving 2 hits and a cut to his leg. They momentarily pause when Luo Lang realizes he has also been cut, smiling at the realization. A gust of wind blows snow into the air, momentarily obscuring Luo Lang from view. Taking advantage of the moment, he rushes through, prompting Nanashi to fake a retreat before counterattacking and trading more blows. After a fierce exchange, the tip of Luo Lang's sword breaks off, and he throws it into Nanashi's arm. Luo Lang seizes Nanashi's sword and leaps down after him, destroying parts of the structure around them. Nanashi pulls the broken blade out of his arm, and they prepare for a final clash. They strike at each other, both landing blows. It is revealed that Luo Lang's decisive strike was blocked by the gem in Nanashi's pocket, minimizing the damage, while Nanashi's strike lands directly in Luo Lang's chest. Luo Lang collapses, remarking on the unfamiliar sensation of being stabbed. Sometime later, Kotaro and Nanashi are seen riding on horseback, with Tobemaru running close by. Kotaro asks how Nanashi's wounds are feeling, to which he responds that they are improving. They discuss their future, with Kotaro suggesting they leave Japan to visit foreign countries, and Nanashi agreeing that it is not a bad idea. As they ride toward the closest village, blood trails behind the horse, leaving Nanashi's fate uncertain.